You feel it most clearly in a crowded room. Everyone's talking, laughing, leaning in, and somehow you're the only one who'd rather be home. Not because something's wrong with you, because somewhere along the way, you figured out that being alone just felt better, calmer, easier, more real. And once you feel that, something shifts. You can be surrounded by people and still feel completely alone. But not in a sad way, in a natural way. Like deep down, it was always supposed to be like this. And here's the strange part. You don't feel any need to fix it. You're not trying to fill the silence. You're not trying to escape it. Because to you, it was never emptiness. It was peace. If that sounds like you've probably spent a long time feeling a little different. Like you don't quite fit in a world that seems to need constant noise, constant talking, constant presence. As if being alone is a problem someone needs to solve. But what if it isn't? What if what you feel isn't something missing, but just a different way of being in the world? Because most people aren't okay alone. They need distraction. They need company. They need stimulation. And when they don't have it, something uncomfortable creeps in. Anxiety, restlessness, that feeling that something's off. But not you. For you, silence doesn't bother you. In fact, the louder the world gets, the more that quiet is worth. And this is where it all starts. People who are okay alone aren't avoiding everyone. They just don't need them. And that one thing changes how they live completely. Here's something almost nobody says out loud. Being around people is tiring. Not always, not with everyone. But it's tiring. The small talk, the automatic smiles, the "how are you?" that doesn't actually want an answer. It adds up. Most people accept it as normal, but some start to see it. They start to notice that a lot of interaction isn't connection. It's performance. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. You start noticing what's forced, what's automatic, what's just repetition. And slowly, you stop chasing it. Not out of rejection, not out of fear. It just doesn't give you what it used to. Now here's an important turn. A lot of people think this is just introversion, but it's more than that. There are introverts who still need others. And then there are people who are okay alone, who simply learned something before everyone else did. They learned how to be with themselves, and that's rarer than it sounds. Think about it. Most people can't be alone without distracting themselves. They put on music. They check their phone. They reach for anything to fill the space. Because sitting alone with their own mind isn't always comfortable. But when you really learn to be alone, no noise, no distractions, no need to escape, you discover something. You don't need as much as you thought you did. A lot of what you were chasing out there, you can actually create inside. Calm, entertainment, even a kind of company. And once you reach that, there's no going back. Because then something curious happens. You start to choose. You don't go out on autopilot anymore. You don't show up out of obligation. You start to filter. And from the outside, that gets read the wrong way. They're isolating. They go out less and less. Something's wrong. But inside, there's no problem. There's clarity. Because when you don't need people to feel okay, you can finally choose who you actually want around. And that's worth more than all the noise. But this doesn't come from nowhere. Usually, it starts much earlier, in seasons where you were more alone than you should have been, moments where you learned to entertain yourself, to figure things out without help, to not depend on anyone. And without noticing, you built something. Emotional self-sufficiency. Not perfect, not absolute, but enough that emptiness doesn't swallow you when no one's there. And that changes everything. Because then the world stops being a need and becomes a choice. You can go out, you can connect, but you're not doing it to fill a hole anymore. You're doing it because you want to. And that difference is enormous. And here it goes deeper. Once you're comfortable alone, you start noticing something you used to miss. Not every company adds something. Not every conversation is worth having. Not every presence deserves your energy. Before, maybe you tolerated it. Now you feel it. And so you guard your space more, not out of isolation, but out of respect for your own peace. There's one more thing that defines people who are okay alone. They don't need constant validation. They don't need someone to witness what they do for it to feel like it mattered. They can spend a whole afternoon reading, thinking, creating, and feel like it was enough. Without posting it, without telling anyone, without sharing it. And these days, that's rare. Because we live in a world where everything seems like it has to be shown, where if no one sees it, it barely counts. But for someone who's okay alone, it doesn't work that way. What they live is enough on its own. And of course, from the outside, this confuses people, because it breaks a very common idea that being alone means something's wrong. But that's not always true. Sometimes being alone is the only way to be at peace. Now, this doesn't mean you don't need anyone, or that you can't connect. Often, it's the opposite. People who are okay alone, when they connect for real. No masks, no noise, no neediness. Because they're not there out of obligation. They're there because they want to be. And you can feel it. But it also means a lot of relationships stop fitting. Conversations you used to tolerate now drain you. Rooms you used to accept now overwhelm you. And it's not that you suddenly changed. It's that you're more aware now. And here's the uncomfortable question. What if you're not isolating? What if you're just done forcing yourself? Because for a long time, you probably did what was expected. Going out, showing up, fitting in, even when you didn't feel like it, even when it drained you, even when something didn't add up. And little by little, you stopped. Not all at once, but steadily. Until being alone wasn't strange anymore. It was natural. And then comes the thing a lot of people don't understand. You're just okay. No constant stimulation. No constant company. Just okay. In a world that constantly pushes outward, do more, see more, show more. People who are okay alone do something different. They stay. Not because they can't go out, but because they don't need to. And maybe that's not a weakness. Maybe it's a different kind of strength. One that doesn't depend on what's out there. One that doesn't need noise to feel alive. So the question isn't whether you're alone. It's whether you're okay like this. Because if the answer is yes, then you've probably already understood something that takes most people their whole lives. That you don't need to be surrounded by people to feel complete. That sometimes your own company is enough. And not everyone has that. If any of this hit home, tell me. When do you feel that difference from everyone else the most? And if this is the kind of thing that makes you see what you couldn't see before, you can support it with a like, or by becoming part of the channel. Thanks for being here.